This is the Analysing Anfield podcast on the Blood Red channel, bringing you the best tactical and statistical analysis of Liverpool FC.
Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode this week of Analysing Anfield, your tactics and analytics podcast, courtesy of the Blood Red channel. It was supposed to be a special episode. It's kind of gone down a different route because obviously Liverpool's Wednesday result with Brighton has kind of changed the landscape a little bit. Nevertheless, we're going to talk briefly about what happened against Brighton, and then we're going to obviously preview Manchester City in what is very likely this time to be a shorter episode. But as ever, I'm joined by David Hughes. Dave, you're probably not as down as me.
No, it's probably the answer to that. Yeah, and I'm very conscious that everybody's going to be watching and listening, feeling a little bit unhappy. So I'll be making sure to be careful what I say. But yeah, it's I think what's changed the plans a little bit is we expected a fairly routine victory, even though we knew Brighton were going to be a tough test for Liverpool. We expected a routine victory, and then all eyes on Manchester City, and obviously it didn't quite pan out like that, did it?
No, I mean we were hoping for a title clash preview for this episode. Hasn't worked out that way because of what Brighton managed to do at Anfield. But just quickly on the game, we're not going to stay on it for too long. But to be honest, from my perspective, Dave, I don't know about you. I think you was at the game, wasn't you? I think Brighton performed exactly how I expected them to. I knew they would be that well drilled. I knew they were good on the defensive side of the game. I knew they could, in moments, get up the pitch. I think my surprise was Liverpool. My surprise was just that Liverpool weren't at the level I thought they would be. If you look at what Liverpool achieved against Spurs and West Ham, that was the level minimum that I expected, really, and it just didn't turn out that way. Hence why, our predictions ended up getting turned upside down, really. Yeah,
I'd agree with a lot of that. I thought, credit where it's due, Brighton's what turned out to be like a back five worked really well. It was full coverage across the defensive third, which makes it really difficult to. Well, basically, on the back of last night's game, I was having a look at Y Scouts earlier, in terms of the meetings with Brighton last year, because I was just trying to see, not just statistically, just in terms of gameplay, how different it was. And I noticed they had a back four last year, and Liverpool were getting a lot of success in terms of switching the ball over to the other side a fair bit, but they couldn't really do that in this game. But I have to say, Josh, I thought Liverpool's attack and play was just so slow. In the final third, I feel like when you're up against these low block sides, which we know have been the issue now for Liverpool for a while, because even though West Ham and Tottenham were sitting in at times, if you look at the goals that Liverpool scored against them, it was normally when they had a little bit more space to do things. Obviously, the counter-attack was one. Even the opener against, I think it was Tottenham, where Henderson put it over to Mane to Firmino. That's because Tottenham's line was a little bit higher than what Brighton were playing with. And I feel like when you're facing a block like that, it needs to be quick, two-touch passing really quick, getting out with your feet, moving it side to side, even playing it through the lines, attacker maybe dropping to the edge of the box, getting it into feet, knowing he won't be able to turn on it, but even if he just gets it into feet, back to the passer, just so you're dislodging defenders a little bit and just moving them out of place, and then trying to expose those little spaces that open up. And to me, there was none of that last night. It was bad. And it often just seemed to be getting the ball out wide where there was already defenders and just trying to swing the ball in and open for the best.
I mean, Brighton's block for a lot of the time throughout the game wasn't even a low block because Liverpool couldn't actually force them into that. Liverpool, for a lot of the match, couldn't really progress into the final third against Brighton. So Brighton were effective at keeping Liverpool away from the goal. And that's something that's been a consistent theme throughout Brighton's season. If you look at, we mentioned it last week. Well, this week it was actually earlier in the week, wasn't it? And we mentioned about Brighton's numbers. And, in terms of shots per 90, shots per match that each team faces, only Liverpool and City face fewer shots per game than Brighton do. So for me, although it took a very similar path, this felt different to Liverpool encountering problems against Burnley and Newcastle United and West Brom and teams like that. This felt different because I expected a really tough game this time around. Those teams with teams Liverpool should, on any day really, should be beaten. I think Brighton, they are a competitive team. They're good enough to compete, well coached and all that sort of stuff. So I knew it would be a tricky game. I just expected Liverpool to offer more, and I thought Liverpool offering more would be enough to break through at least once. And then once we broke through once, I thought, gradually it'd be tight. Brighton would maybe commit more men forward, and Liverpool would maybe sneak another as the match got to a close. But it just didn't really work out that way. Salah had a chance early on in what looked like quite a premeditated move, with Salah coming on the inside against Dan Burn, who's just the most unconventional wing back you'll ever see. But we then didn't really exploit that once again throughout the game. We tried to once or twice with Trent, with balls over the top, but Trent was overhitting them and stuff, and it just it didn't really work. And after the game, when Klopp gave his interview and stuff like that, Klopp seemed to focus more than usual on the intangible aspects, such as the mental fatigue and that sort of thing, and wanting to apply certain things, wanting to apply certain ideas on the game, but just maybe being too tired in the head and not sharp enough to actually do it.
I would, that last point you say there, I wouldn't disagree too much with that. There was a couple of times where I thought there was one or two nice movements, in the attacking third, and when they come to it, the pass execution just wasn't there. A couple of examples I can think of: Milner had one or two where he tried to chip it into the box and it hits the first man. So that is a factor, but as I thought in general the attacking play was poor. In my opinion, I think Brighton were sitting fairly deep. I don't agree that was an ultra low block, but I do think we're sitting deep and just minimising the space in the attacking third, and Liverpool just didn't do enough to find ways to bypass it really. I was quite shocked, because even though I'm glad that we caveated before the game saying that Brighton are a good side and it's misleading at the 17th, because they're better than what you see. I still expected Liverpool to have too much on the back of those two good performances last week, and obviously it didn't work out like that.
I mean, one thing I would like to caveat is that this Liverpool team was very, very far from the actual Liverpool team that we know. I think we all have high expectations now on this Liverpool team to win virtually every week, regardless and stuff like that. But if you actually look at the team, this was far from the Liverpool champions that we've come to expect. And I think most of Liverpool's record signings missed this game. Pretty much all of them, with the exception of Salah, who I think ranks about maybe 5th on Liverpool's big signing list at the minute in terms of the current squad. But if you look at the team, you've got Kelleher in goal, who was generally fine, but it's still a kid. Your two centre halves, you've got Nat Phillips, who Liverpool struggled to loan out in the summer, and Jordan Henderson as a centre back, who's not a centre back, and is, arguably his biggest strength is harrying opponents high up the field. You got Thiago, Wijnaldum, Milner in the midfield. Wijnaldum is the 6 there. Again, it's not a Liverpool midfield really. You usually got Fabinho as the 6, then you've got Wijnaldum and Henderson bombing on and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes you've got Naby Keita in there and adding unpredictability and things. And in the attack, you've got Firmino, Salah in the usual roles, and then you had Shaqiri playing the Mane role, despite the fact Shaqiri's left-footed, Mane's right-footed. So, it should have probably been more predictable that this would happen, really. And I think Liverpool would be an entirely different team if, for example, Davis and Kabak start playing. Fabinho can go into midfield, Henderson can play as an 8, and Mane's fit, obviously Alisson's fit. So, we are having to cope with an absolute ton of changes in a very weird season with no fans and all that sort of stuff. And it's affecting us. It's probably the first time, to be honest, Dave. Might drop a little bit of a bomb here. It's probably the first time all season whereby I've kind of relinquished the title a little bit. I don't really. I can't see it. I don't think. I think too much has happened. I think the squad is at the minute, at least. I know it's a long season, and I'm a firm believer that there's so many twists and turns, and we're going to get to Manchester City in a second, but it's just really hard for what Liverpool are doing at the minute. Even being where they are, despite the problems we've encountered and stuff. If you look at that team that faced Brighton, it is a mess in comparison to what we had last year, for example, and the year before, in terms of just consistency every week, not just in terms of performances, but in terms of the players on the field, getting used to patterns, getting used to your teammates, and it's just it just feels like there's just too much going against Liverpool in various departments for it to be still doable at this stage. What about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree, to be honest. That was my main takeaway from yesterday. I thought, the title's probably gone now, because, to be fair, last season, I think it was as early as December, we said on this show, back when we used to sit in the studio and do it, the glory days. I said on that, you agreed, not to jinx it, but I think Liverpool definitely going to win the title. Thought it was done and dusted then. Obviously, people were still apprehensive, but went on to be as easy as you'd expected. But it's the other side of the coin this season. Yeah, thinking I don't see how they win it. I think if the competition was purely, say, Manchester United, take Manchester City out of the equation, I think Liverpool would still have every chance, to be honest. And I do think, despite the recent problems, that Liverpool will hit form again soon and go and win maybe 6 or 7 games on the trot when they have a proper defensive duo. They have midfielders back in position. Hopefully attackers kind of performing each week. Jota coming in and out of the side. I think when that's happening, you're going to see a more consistent Liverpool. But I think Man City's the problem, I do, which, I'm sure we're going to move on to now. I just think they look at the levels that Liverpool and City have been at for the last couple of years. Okay, they dropped off a little bit while Liverpool maintained last year, but they seem to have found their absolute, they're basically producing that kind of elite level, 100 points a season form over these last couple of months, aren't they, that we got used to with Liverpool and City over the past few years. And I just can't see Liverpool replicating that, because I think am I right in saying, if although I'm not necessarily expecting it, by the way, but if they were to win the game on Sunday, I think it would be roughly 10 points with a game in hand that they'd be clear. So you'd be looking, what's that, 3? You need Liverpool to win every game and them to lose 3 and draw 1. Is that right, for Liverpool to overtake them?
Yeah,
with about like that, yeah. And that's about 15, 16 games left. I just can't see it. But look, you never know. It is football after all, and a couple of defeats could change City's form quickly. Maybe starting with the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I need to stress it. I don't necessarily think it's over, but I think that this was just the first time when I've kind of stepped back and just thought, you know what, this probably is too much for this current team to deal with. I said at the start of the season, Liverpool were the strongest team. I still believe that a full strength Liverpool is the strongest team. I think if Liverpool had a normal campaign in terms of injuries and stuff, we'd be top of the league. I think we'd be, even despite City's form and stuff, I still think Liverpool would be going for the title fairly comfortably. And I think next season, I would not be surprised if Liverpool, if everything stays normal, at least, I think Liverpool go into next season as favourites. But it's just now, it's just too much for the team to deal with, while still demonstrating consistency every single week on the pitch. It's just really, really hard, considering, the teams around us are dealing with not even 50% really of the problem. Not having to readjust things by even half the extent that Liverpool are. So we'll see how we go. It's a long season. If Liverpool beat City on the weekend, the gap will go to 4 points. City will have a game in hand, so we could go back to 7, but 4 points still with around 15, 14 games left to play in the campaign. Things can happen. I am, as I said, a firm believer that the season's long, but it's just it's looking really hard for the current group to be doing what they're doing, really, to the extent where kind of, the legs are falling off really after going so long and standing up for so long. It's kind of like a heavyweight boxer taking a few knocks and eventually just sort of going to ground, really, after taking a few beatings.
Yeah, all catching up, you mean?
Yeah, it catching up, yeah. But we're going to Manchester City anyway, because funnily enough, this is, I said after this game to the people who I was watching the game with, I said I would not be surprised if Liverpool go and win on the weekend. It wouldn't shock me at all, given the stylistic makeup of the two teams. But City look ominous, really, don't they, Dave?
Yeah, they look, really good. Underlying metrics, they look really good. Defensively, they've kind of been a weakness for a while, haven't they? But this season, it's clear that Guardiola knew that was the big issue last year. He's rectified it. It was initially at the expense of the attack for those first, maybe 2 months of the season. The attack's catching up now. I think what I really like about the City's attack actually is I'd gathered this before. They're not really dependent on one or two individuals, are they? Obviously they're without De Bruyne now, but they've got goals from everywhere. I'm having a look here. I've got it in front of me. Got 6 players on 4 or more league goals, but they haven't got one on more than 7. So it's kind of like they just, the goals come from everywhere. There's not this major reliance on any player in particular. And yeah, I think they're quite tactically unique this year, aren't they? The way they're using Cancelo and things, it feels like they have got an ace up the sleeve a little bit, and it makes the analysis work, I guess, going into the game from a Liverpool perspective a little bit more difficult than it's probably been in the past.
Yeah, I mean they've won 9 in a row now in the Premier League, and over the course of those 9 wins, they've posted an expected goals of 18.9 and an expected goals against of 3.7. So that's a 9-game stretch whereby they've basically scored 19 in terms of the shots and conceded 4. It is ominous form. It's the performances and the numbers that you want, really, if you're going for the title, consistency and stuff. And it's going to be hard for Liverpool to match. But one caveat that I have on this that maybe not everyone's considered, and if you look at the teams they've faced over that period, they are perfect Guardiola teams. They're easily able to dominate virtually all of them. And if you actually look at the games that City have played this season against even teams that are remotely tricky, City's numbers haven't really been the same. So part of me thinks City have turned the corner, they've been developing, and now they've took the foot off the gas and they're doing well. But another part of me is thinking maybe it's just a case of they're playing really, really ideal opposition, apart from Chelsea, who they played off the park. But if you look at the underlying numbers and the scorelines in many cases, when they faced Liverpool, when they faced Tottenham, when they faced Man United, when they faced Southampton, when they faced Arsenal to a lesser extent, Leeds, Leicester, possibly Wolves on the opening weekend.
Just to add on that quickly, Josh, I am looking at any team that's in the top 7 now. They've played 5 times and they haven't won one of those games yet. as you mentioned them there, United 0-0, Leicester 5-2 home defeat, Leicester 1-1, West Ham 1-1, Tottenham 2-0 defeat. So yeah, any team inside top 7, 5 games against such sides, and they haven't won one yet. Although admittedly, they were in the early part of the season mainly, but that ties in with the original point you were saying, that they've had a fairly nice run of fixtures.
Well, if you want to go down the route of a running, what their running would be from here, it's hard because of how the games they've had. And I must admit, inside those games, they did play Chelsea off the park. They did play Brighton off the park as well, and Villa. Yeah, those are 3 good teams. But from now on, City have got Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal, West Ham, Man United, Fulham, who are well coached at the minute by lots of things, Wolves.
Got Leicester. Everton in there as well, by the way, is the postponed games. Everton away.
Yeah, Everton in there, yeah. Leicester, Leeds, Villa, Southampton, Palace, Chelsea, Newcastle, Brighton, and funnily enough, Everton on the last day of the season. I wasn't aware of that one.
Neither was I, actually.
Yeah, City's last 5 aren't that tricky, considering they've got Palace, they've got Newcastle, they've got Brighton, who showed up well against Liverpool at least. But between now and those final 5 games, let's say, City have got a tough run, and we'll know a lot more about whether they have developed into this elite team over the past month or 2, based on how they get on against those better opponents who do have the ability to play through them, and who do have the threats to kind of actually cause City threats on the defensive side. And we'll know a lot more, obviously, when they face Liverpool on the weekend. Liverpool can kind of start a little bit of a downfall, I suppose, on City's side of things by showing the rest of the league their weaknesses and kind of, showing that although City are winning the league at the minute, Liverpool are still the champions and stuff. So from a Liverpool perspective, Dave, are you going into this, if you're Klopp, with any hope, or
Yeah, no, I am definitely. I think City do, whether that'll still be there under these circumstances. Well, I do feel like City have a little bit of at Anfield at least, inferiority complex. I think they just, I don't know why they haven't been able to shake it, because they've often been the better side going to Anfield, in my opinion, historically, over the last, say, 10, 15 years. But I don't think they've won there since around 2004, which is crazy when you think how long they've had the money and, being the top side. And just a bit of a side note off a piece I was writing today. I noticed that Liverpool have lost only once against any of the current top 10, and are averaging 2.18 points per game. However, against the league current bottom 10, they've won only 4 of their 11 matches and are averaging 1.45. So, we know that the issue is against the sides who sit in, whereas, against top teams who do give you a little bit more space, that can be that your really good attackers can expose. Liverpool is still able to produce the best football based on what we've seen so far this season. 2.18 points per game in these matches. So I do expect it to be difficult. I expect to see a really good Liverpool side, and whilst I'm not saying they're definitely going to win, I'm also not heavily tipping City by any means. I think that this Liverpool side sometimes pull a rabbit out the hat a little bit, and it wouldn't surprise me if it happened again this weekend.
No, I'm the same. I think Liverpool can win this match. I was going to say comfortably, but I'm not sure if I'd say comfortably, but I think Liverpool can definitely show the rest of the league in this game that City are kind of human, if you like. City, the numbers that City have accumulated over the run that they're on, I've took them back to normal in many points departments. We mentioned earlier in the season that in some of the performance areas they were just looking not that special, really. Now that's kind of reverted back to type. They're currently top of the division for shots per match. Their expected goals per shot against is the best, which suggests that when teams generate shots against City, that the trickiest to score. trickiest shots on average to score, basically, to put away. And they're the top scorers per match in the league as well. They're actually slightly behind Man United in that department, but the fact that United have just scored 9, I'm removing that as a complete anomaly. City are the top scorers, really, aren't they? So, but from a Liverpool perspective, then going into this game, there's a few question marks, maybe. So, firstly, assuming Mane's back, what formation are you going with? Because Liverpool went to the Etihad last year, at the end of last year at least, with Jota, and played a 4-4-2 system that I really liked and seems really well suited to causing City problems. And the second question, what do you do with your new centre-backs? Do you use both of them and bring Henderson and possibly Fabinho as well, both into the midfield? Do you use one of them and keep Henderson in the last line? Do you, there's a number of questions there. So on those two, Dave, they're probably two big ones.
In terms of the defender point, is Fabinho going to be fit? Do we know?
There's a rumour that Fabinho and Mane can both make it, but I honestly don't know, to be honest.
I'd be inclined to put one of the new defenders in, definitely. I know it's a big game to go in for, but I think he wants... sorry about that. I've seen what our producer guy said. Maybe you can have a look for us, Josh. But yeah, it's I'd definitely bring one of them in, and I'd be inclined maybe to push Henderson into midfield. I think in terms of what he does off the ball, I know Fabinho is a fantastic number 6, but you could probably put someone else in the number 6. I'd probably have Henderson back in midfield. I'd put one of the new defenders in with Fabinho, who I think's been the best makeshift centre back Liverpool have had so far. In terms of formation, I don't know, because if you're talking about the 4-4-2, there's no Jota available.
It'd be Shaqiri.
Yeah, I'd be inclined, probably, to be honest. I'd maybe go with a flat 4-3-3 personally, with the potential adaptation to change it if need be to go into the 4-4-2. But yeah, my personal opinion is I'd maintain the 4-3-3 with the usual suspects in attack. Hopefully have a Henderson in the midfield. Maybe, Wijnaldum in at 6, and then maybe Thiago as well in there. There's your midfield, and then the defence, one of the new boys in there with Fabinho and normal 2 wing backs. That's probably my team.
I mean, from the City perspective, one of the reasons Liverpool's 4-4-2 worked so well at the Etihad is because Guardiola seemed to be leaning towards a 4-2-3-1 whenever he was facing Liverpool. It seems to be gradually his solution to getting around Liverpool's 4-3-3. Liverpool obviously countered that at the Etihad by using 4-4-2. But of late, City have had real joy using their own version of a 4-3-3. Gundogan has kind of taken the place of David Silva in many ways, playing very much like him, getting into the box, scoring goals. He's in a few people's fantasy teams, isn't he?
Yours.
And Cancelo as well. Cancelo as well, as you mentioned there, he is doing a bit of everything, really. So it'd be interesting to see if, given the form City have been in using that 4-3-3, it'd be interesting to see if Guardiola reverts back to his 4-2-3-1, which he was working on to beat Liverpool, or whether he sticks with what's been working lately, or all that sort of stuff.
Josh, just on that as well, obviously we should touch on Laporte playing at left back against Burnley, and whether that's going to be the case against Liverpool. Having a flat back 4 with him in, with Diaz, Stones, and Cancelo. That's a pretty sturdy back 4, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, I was led to believe that the reason he did that was to get a bit of height in the team, given Burnley's threat. But given Liverpool's biggest threat at the minute is probably Salah, putting Laporte on the left, who's obviously decent 1v1 and stuff like that, as opposed to maybe a Mendy or a Zinchenko, maybe makes a bit of sense. But maybe you'll move Cancelo to the left and play Kyle Walker, given the status of this game and the perks that Kyle Walker offers you on a pitch. But there's plenty of questions attached to this one that remain unanswered, really. even related to who's going to play for Liverpool and whether everyone's going to be fit. It's a tricky one. Do you think Liverpool have to win this game, Dave?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Definitely can't lose. The problem is, I just think sometimes you say take the draw and make the deficit elsewhere. But so is it 7 points the gap at the moment? It is, isn't it? 7 points game.
Current gap is 7 points. City with the game in hand.
Yeah. So you're thinking if you don't make it, if you basically kick that down the line, so to speak, and you think we're going to pull it back somewhere else, you've already lost another game week there to do so. Yeah, I don't like that. I think if you're gonna, you have to win it if you want. If you want the title, I think Liverpool have to win this game. Personally, I'm not saying they don't win it and it's impossible to win the title. As I said, with football, you never know. But I think if they really want to, give themselves the best opportunity to do so, then this is a must-win game. Why? What's your opinion?
No, I would mostly agree on that. I don't think it's ever really as simple as you have to win, otherwise this, because there's still so many games left in the season. Liverpool's still got 16 games to play. Manchester City have still got 17 games to play, and as we've just touched on there, City's running is tricky compared to what they've faced in the past 10 games. Having said that, I just think if Liverpool have any aspirations of winning this title, they have to take the points off City that they will be relying on others to take out to do the same. So, given it's 7 points at the minute, a Liverpool win would only take it back to 4, and that's still with City having a game in hand. So, this is as close to a must-win as you're gonna get, really, when it comes to finding a way to get back into this title race and stuff. I think without it, it's going to be really difficult, and I think without it, Liverpool just needs to pretty much focus on posing some sort of challenge and staying inside the top 4 and establishing that, and kind of looking at this season as just one of them absolutely daft, unfortunate events, really, that you just can't really reason with. Almost, it's been a really tricky one. The injuries.
It's not one you can prepare for, is it?
No, it's one that would challenge the absolute best squads in the world. You know what I mean? There's no way around that, really. So I think we've previewed it there, Dave. So verdict on this one?
A big, massive cop out by me, but I see something like a 1-1 draw. To be honest, I think if City in a position where the game's tied going into the last 20 minutes, I don't think they'll be desperate to win it. I think they'd like to, but I think they would be quite comfortable to shut up shop. Yeah, I'm going to go for 1-1. I think makes 1-1. Predictions are wrong every week anyway at the moment, so it doesn't really matter what I say. But yeah, that's what I'm going for.
To be honest, I'm getting close to the stage where I just stop doing them because this season is just crazy. But yeah, I'm finding it tricky to predict this one, largely because I don't know who's going to play. I think if Mane was playing, and I knew Mane was playing, I'd be a bit more confident. Looking at Liverpool's midfield against Brighton, they looked shattered. So does that mean Curtis Jones comes in for a game against Manchester City, which is a big deal? The new centre-backs play their debut again against Manchester City, which is a big deal. So it's a really difficult one to preview. I don't think City will be in a rush to win this. For what it's worth, Dave, our producer put in the chat there that Man City are without a win in 19 visits to Anfield in all competitions. There's obviously a reason behind that. So I don't think they'll be that obsessed with getting 3 points in this one, even though it's very possible for them. So yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think I'm looking towards a draw, but I do think the stylistic approach of Liverpool doesn't suit Manchester City, and I think Manchester City lately have had everything their own way, and it's going to very, very much be a tables turned game for them. This is going to be a big adaptation compared to what they've had to face lately. They've had all the ball lately. They've had Sheffield United. I think they faced Newcastle as well. They faced who did they face last night? Burnley.
Burnley.
That's absolutely zero attacking threat from all of those teams. So Liverpool are hopefully going to be able to shock them a little bit early on. But I think I'm leaning towards maybe a 1-1, possibly a 2-1 if Liverpool have a number of their starters back in the team. But I'm not sure. But we'll round up there anyway. So yeah, hopefully got a few listeners for that second podcast of the week. We don't usually do that. Hopefully Liverpool win this game and we can get back to talking about the title next week.
Yeah, because it does feel a bit flat. It has felt a bit flat, hasn't it, by our standards? And I do just think it's the results. So hopefully, people have still enjoyed it and haven't felt like we've been too negative. I think it's about being honest, isn't it, in the good and the bad.
Yeah, I mean we won't blow smoke. It's always, but it's always got to be a case if you can't get carried away with the results. You need to be level-headed and stuff. But with Liverpool, at what point does a blip become a pattern? And I think lately Liverpool, especially against lower teams, weaker teams, aren't really doing it. And thankfully, in the next few weeks, Liverpool face better teams, which seems to bode well for us. So hopefully we do a bit better. See where the season goes. But remember, anyway, the season is long, so you never know. But Dave, thanks for joining us, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thanks, everyone.
And we'll be back next week. Cheers.